Welcome to the Then and Now podcast, greatest podcast in the world, multiverse, and all those good things. I'm your host, C Diesel. To the left of me, I have Mr. Lelouch V. You know what? Hold on. Let's stop the.
Just
Otis, say something for me real quick. Otis, no. Otis, I
I
want you
was
to say
gonna
something to the
say anything.
fans. Say
I
something to the
wasn't saying
fans.
that.
Y'all hear
Hello.
that?
Hello.
For people that are new to the show, our boy has the crispiest audio that he has ever had now, and we can hear his mind. He's on his Earl Jones Jr. shit, Darth Vader type shit,
My voice is nowhere near that deep. I'll take the compliment. And I also I appreciate you fellas for getting this for me for my birthday. I mean, it means a lot. I've been wanting to get more quality, and this is a step in the direction. So thank you.
No, of course. I just want to point out real quick that Charlie said, Otis, talk for us. And then as Otis was trying to say a word, Charlie immediately spoke on top of his nuts. But you do sound crispy as hell, sir. Sound crispy as hell. You do sound crispy as hell.
But yeah, guys, thank you guys for tuning in. Today we have a really good episode for you guys today. We're going to be going over a plethora of topics. So let's go ahead and get started, guys. First and foremost, I guess the thing that's on the thumbnail, the big topic we have to talk about is Andor, the Disney Plus series that just released, starring characters from the original Star Wars movie Rogue One, being Cassian Andor. I'll let Ethan get his thoughts off first, because me and Otis, I feel like I've already kind of talked about this a little bit and know where each other stand. I'm interested to see what you have to say, Ethan.
Right on. So I the first 3 episodes are the ones that have only dropped, but I really like the show. I know that it's a bit of a slow burn in some ways, getting to that 3rd episode, and we won't get into too many spoilers, I guess. But the biggest thing or biggest takeaway I had from this show was the fact that it felt real. It felt lived in. It felt like the characters mattered. It felt like I could get immersed into it. There wasn't such a overwhelming veneer. I'm gonna compare it directly to Rings of Power. I apologize, Otis, because I know here's the thing, because he's so crispy now, we can hear his groans in full octave. When Rings of Power, that veneer was so present, and the slow motion they used, and it just felt the artifice was too overwhelming for me to ever get lost in it. And the characters never felt like characters; they felt like caricatures or high school play type of people trying to pretend to be thespians portraying Tolkien's work. This feels very, very real. This minute feel as old school, like Star Wars, like where you feel like you're in a fantasy as much, but they're not trying to do that. They're trying to show like, what if you were in a dystopian, war-ravished world, and you were a street urchin trying to survive, and you completely get lost in that. So I really, really appreciated that about this show. I also love the music, but that's another thing altogether. But so I enjoyed my time there. I know there's different strokes for different folks for different reasons. Cool deal. But I did enjoy the world itself.
Yeah. For me personally, the show, I can tell by watching the show, there's a lot of thought process and a lot of effort that went into making the show, and a lot of attention to detail. I guess a couple of fun facts that I found out: the language that the kids speak on the planet when you encounter them, without giving away too many spoilers, that's an original language that the writers, they created that language from a compilation of other languages that they feel will mash together over time. So it's like they created their own language for the show, which is interesting, as well as the fact that they took a lot of different stuff from a lot of different parts of Star Wars lore. So they've been extremely detail oriented with this show. The quality of acting is there. The actors are all top notch and from great other shows that HBO and has had. I think one guy he was from the Batman. He was not the commissioner, but Gordon's original boss in the Batman. He was that guy. It's the only thing I feel like it's lacking. It just doesn't have. Maybe it's just because it's a slow burn. I'm just not captured by it. I'm not captivated by the show yet. It's cool and I can see its quality there, but I can easily have my attention like deterred somewhere else while watching this because it's not capturing me quite yet. And Andor, to like the main character isn't the most captivating to me yet. I'm not 100% on board with Cassian yet, nor are the villains and the antagonists that they're showing. Maybe they're not the final antagonists, but up until this point, the antagonists we've seen haven't really captured me either. So I'm looking for something to grasp onto, and I just haven't found that yet.
I completely understand that, and I mean to cut you off, O. I completely understand what you're saying because it's almost like we haven't even seen. It's almost like the show just got started at the end of episode 3 in a way. Like we still don't know what the actual real plot is. We don't really spoiler alert, some of the main characters like Stellan Skarsgård doesn't show up until episode 3. So it's like the show is finally kicking off now. It's almost going into Charlie and Jeffrey's book. They have a comic book called Episode 0. So the first book isn't really even about the story yet. It's kind of the preamble to the real story. These first 3 episodes are kind of like episode 0 leading up to the real thing, I think. So I get you.
Mm-hmm. Otis.
So, I mean, this series, these 3 episodes took me 2 days to watch because after watching the first episode, I was like, why the fuck am I watching this? The pacing was really slow. It didn't really grasp me at all. I didn't really feel connected to any of the characters. But when I came back to freshly the second day, and I watched that first episode, and then went on to watch the second and third, I started to feel more for it just because the tone of it, the feel of the show is so far outside of the norm of what you get in Star Wars. Like in Star Wars, the characters are so grandiose that they feel like kind of like almost like they're levitating above everything. Like, and there's not like they're not a part of the background. The background is just there. This is the first time I was watching the Star Wars series and like, oh no, this is it. Like the background is their life. Like, and you're really getting to see how it feels to live in the slums of Empire-run planet. And I really feel like they were trying to do a little bit of symbolism here with the Empire, because I mean, like, have they ever worn blue uniforms like that before? Like, are they trying to,
So those uniforms, they're not a part of the Empire. That's a privately owned company that the Empire brought in.
But it's obviously I mean, I see what you're getting for. Oh, go ahead and say what you're
they felt like the ops, like they felt like police. So I feel like they're trying to draw a few parallels there, but I mean, this is the first real story that like I felt like, okay, like this is a world of Star Wars. Like you got some of that when in like the Star Wars Clone Wars series, but like in like the movies, you don't really ever feel attached to a planet or an area. Yeah. And I feel like you get that in this. And also it's like this feels like what's the movie to compare this to? I don't know, like
Blade Runner, but I know you're not a fan of that series.
No, it doesn't feel like Blade Runner to me. It feels, I mean, this feels more like a spy thriller, but within a space world. So I guess that would be Blade Runner. I don't know, but like I said, like it doesn't have the usual feel of just the overall grandiosity that a normal Star Wars thing has, and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm looking forward to seeing more of it. It hasn't like I can't really say like this is like a good thing just yet, but it has made me feel something for this world. So I'm looking to see where it goes.
Yeah, I do agree with both of y'all actually, because it is a very slow burn, and I recognize that it was a slow burn. I recognize it would probably lose some people, which is why they put 3 episodes up as opposed to the first one. And to get back to what Otis, the first one is like it opens up kind of more interesting, but then it kind of like nothing happens afterwards. But the thing about it is, and we won't get into crazy spoilers, but it very much is a parallel to our real world, and also the idea of like, let's say Cassian was, I don't know, straight up a minority, and let's say that these authority figures were straight up, I don't know, in blue. These were boys in blue, and something happens, and they're like, we don't care about righteousness or justice. It's like, okay. So that felt very real.
Yeah.
Too real. So it's so even to the point where there's a scene where basically old boy's boss is like blaze out all the wrong things that these space popo did, and he's like, I don't give a fuck. I'm still. It's like, oh, all right then. That's where we are. So so watching it from my perspective as a grown ass black man, I was like, okay, I can kind of. Even though Cassian isn't the most charismatic, charming character, he's definitely not a Han Solo. I can relate to him, and I can relate to his plight and his struggle. And at the end of episode 3, when it's doing that beautiful, borderline anime level, like kind of a montage with the music and everything, kind of showing as things are happening with the music playing, which I watched multiple times because I'm an anime fan. That really hit with me as far as like. I have no choice but to accept my circumstances and deal with it, kind of thing. So that's why I'm on board for this series. It is not perfect by any means, but I'm willing to go on for this ride because I do want to see how it unfolds. And obviously we know later on with Rogue One, but still, as far as for the show, how it unfolds. That's all.
Yeah. To get into like two things because I kind of brought in cons, but two things I liked about the series. One point, kind of piggybacking off of Otis's point earlier, I like the grounded grittiness of it. I think when it comes to recent products they made with like the Mandalorian, I think that's been like the calling card of the recent Disney Star Wars stuff. Is they actually spend time on each planet you're on to kind of world build a little bit, versus other original Star Wars stuff. It's like a galactic thing where they don't spend too much time on one spot outside of like the places that you see that are iconic, like Tatooine or like a Coruscant, places like that. But them spending time on each world and kind of building out the world has been really dope. Like, granted, even with Boba Fett, that wasn't the best show, but the thing I liked about that was that you really got to see Tatooine and for that moment in time in that time period and what it was, and know what that world was like and what that town was like. And each of these towns and each of these shows feel different than one another. They don't just seem like carbon cutouts of each one. There's personality there. This one specifically, the thing I thought was cool when the boys in blue were invading town or whatever else, the people like took the signs down so they could navigate the city, and they like banged on metal. That was like each, like the city had its own personality that I really enjoyed with the people and the way it went about. Even with Andor, Cassian himself, he has quirky things that I like about him somewhat. His blaster, first and foremost. I like his blaster.
Yeah, sorry.
Zyback? What up, Zy?
Yeah, Zy.
His blasters. I ain't gonna lie. He probably has my favorite blaster I've seen.
Right, I hadn't seen it before.
Smooth.
I know you were much.
It was smooth. Yeah.
The rotating like reloading clip was like cool. I think up until this point, my favorite blaster is probably Han Solo's because it's a damn cheat code if you played Battlefront 2.
Sure. Yeah, it is. It's broken as hell. Also, it's like a Luger from the too. But yeah.
So there are things in the show that I like, and I'm not going to write it off quite yet. I'm excited to see where it goes because I'm a Star Wars fanatic. I'm still waiting for you know what I'm waiting on. I'm waiting on the Ahsoka stuff and the Sith stuff and all that stuff that brought me in initially. But for what it's worth with this show, I'm enjoying it and want to see where it rides out.
Yeah, and that's fair. Again, that really I can't knock any of y'all's opinions on that. I think what it is really is that it do feel like it is an actual slow burn. It is actually building towards something, and the actual acting, the characters, or portrayals, it felt real enough. I hate to keep on. Actually, no, I love doing it. I love bashing Rings of Power. Rings of Power, it never felt like it was going anywhere. It's like, what is the point of this? It still feels like it's building towards something. It may be slowly building, but it is building. It does have payoffs in a way. So I'm willing to stay on board for it.
To anyone watching, I mean, if you are going to take on this series, legitimately spend your time and go through all 3 episodes. Because for me, like I said, it didn't really grasp me until a specific rant in the 3rd episode when Andor was talking to. I don't remember. I didn't really catch his name, but
I forgot his name. Yeah.
But the contact, the guy that would get kicked from the train. Yeah.
Did they say his name?
It's like Luther or something like it's something with the L.
Oh, they do say his name.
Luther, Luthian, something like that. But the guy that's really going to, I guess, be driving the plot of this story going forward. There was a conversation between him and about how pretentious, the Empire were, just how they approach things, how they view things, and I was like, you know what? I can relate to that because I feel the same way about other groups of people that we're not going to talk about right now. But
that's exactly right. Exactly right. That's what hooked me. Yeah, that's speech. Yeah.
Another standout thing with the show, the directing of this, at least these episodes I've seen, were beautiful. Like especially that 3rd episode, like the shot when they clipped in between his mother at a young age, seeing him young and then seeing him old. I was like, and that close-up shot where they're zooming in on him, but the lights getting, I'm like, damn, this shit is really well done, and like, there's a lot of thought that went into it, and that's something that really caught me. And like you said, music, you already know what me and music and stuff.
Y'all think whoever directed this sow Boys in the Hood? Because Ricky, Timmy, I'm just saying, that's.
I wouldn't be surprised.
There's no, of course. I mean, John Singleton. Obviously the director of this is the same dude who did with Born Legacy and some other things too. And didn't he? I think he was involved with Rogue One. I don't think he directed it, but that's Gavin Hood. But Yeah, this feels cinematic overall. It feels cinematic. It doesn't feel like cheap knockoff, quick fling. And I don't mean to bash Boba Fett, but Boba Fett sometimes the sets felt like you're on sets, or it didn't feel as grandiose in the right way. Even though this is grandiose, it feels very grounded and very real at the same time.
Side note too, since we're on the topic, I'm glad we're seeing just more black people in this verse in general, just like around.
Yeah.
We went like 3 whole movies without seeing like almost any of them, and then I don't even know how many I saw in the prequel trilogy, and then now they're just like around everywhere. They're just like chilling. I'm like, oh, thank God they're just here. We don't have to have a reason for them, or they're just part of the verse.
It's a more diverse world in general.
Starting to happen because, like, I mean, same thing with E's favorite show, Rings of Power.
Sir.
It took them 6 movies to start putting in black people.
Yeah, I mean, how many thousands of years would that happen? Yeah. So.
Another fun fact I found out: do you guys remember in Game of Thrones the one ice giant that was like 7 feet tall, like the one tall ass giant?
Yeah.
That would walk with them. So that guy plays the monster that he talked to in this show. He's like an actual 7'3" actor. Like they put the 7'3" guy in prosthetics and let him talk in this one.
That's dope.
I was like, damn, that's dope.
Do much, but yeah, he's there. He's definitely there. That's dope.
They're doing a thing with this show. They're letting the voice actors, like they're letting the people that puppet the droids and voice actors, actually letting them like actually speak instead of just having them in prosthetics. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. That's what I think that's a bigger part, another part of evolution as far as acting and things of that nature, is letting the people that are behind the prosthetics and the puppeteering kind of get some notoriety, some credit for some things. They let the dude who in years past they wouldn't do this as far as at movie premieres, but for Prey, that Predator film, the actual guy who was in the Predator suit actually went to the premiere also, and they were seeing him just to let him know he's a real actor who's involved with it, which has never been done before.
Seriously, that's never been done before.
Really? I feel like didn't the guy that was Darth Maul, didn't he go to the premiere?
Well, I meant for the Predator movies. Predator movies.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know about. Of course, there are other. Ray Park was the name and stuff. But I mean, like for Predator movies, the guys that were the Predators had never gone to them before.
That's wild.
Wow. The person that was being the character that the movie is named after is not coming to the premiere of the movie.
Yeah, that's wild. Obviously, Doug Jones for some of Guillermo's movies probably went to the premieres. I'm sure he's a name, and Andy Serkis for the apes and stuff. But I mean, as far as guys that are only seen as monsters in these movies that are behind the prosthetics, whether you're almost not meant to even think of them as people, are now getting a chance to actually be people. Like you said, the guy who was a giant or a giant in Game of Thrones and was, he's actually getting a chance to shine. So
I will say, I'm throwing another bone to horror movies. That's been a big thing in horror. Like you always know who's behind the monster. Kane Hodder was like probably more well known than actual Jason himself when it comes to being the monster in movies and things of that nature. Like every Jason, like they're all at the booths and all the fans know him, and all I'm saying. But
didn't he do some wrestling or something?
Kane Hodder, no, I don't believe so.
I feel bad because this is the first time I've ever heard this name.
Or Kane Hodder. If you're in the circle, Kane Hodder. Because there was a whole thing where they're trying to do Kane Hodder versus Freddy versus Jason. But then they didn't use him, right? They didn't use Kane Hodder.
Yeah, he wanted. So there's been, I think, like 3 or 4 Jasons over the lifetime of the movie series. But I think Kane Hodder's done the most, and he's like the original one, I believe. Because he's a little older now, but he's a taller dude that's done it. And they've had each dude they've had come in and do it. I think and a lot of them have crossed over and done, I think, Michael Myers as well, and then some other horror movies here and there. But in the horror genre in general, like usually the behind the scenes people are just as popular, if not more, than a lot of the people that are on screen, like Savini and things of that nature. Like
Savini is
Which I can't think of any other like special effects makeup artist on that level that's just as well known as Tom Savini.
No, and he even got a massive, of course, shout out in that show Lock and Key that you and I watched. But yeah, I know because originally we're so far off topic, but who cares? But Kane Hodder and Robert Englund actually became friends over the years from it's Freddy and Jason, and they were trying to get Freddy versus Jason made for a long time before it actually happened. And then by the time it did happen, like you said, Kane Hodder basically aged out of the role or whatever it was, but they didn't use him, and he was upset about that. So.
Yeah, it was what it was. But yeah, to get back to Andor, and I guess officially rate do you even want to rate the first 3 episodes, or do you just want to kind of let it ride? and see, come back to it when it's done.
Maybe come back. I guess we can. We can come back. I guess. It's only fair.
We'll do like a full-on episode review, season review of it when it's finished.
That's fair. Yeah, season review. Yeah.
Got you.
We can rate Rings of Power now. Is there what's below 0?
I've only seen the one episode, so I'm not saying nothing yet. Y'all watched. I've only seen the one.
This Kevin give a hard time.
I've seen 4, and I'm just like, why did I watch these?
It went downhill that fast.
It's not terrible, but it's not good either.
It's
like,
really not
it's
good,
just like
it's yeah.
That's why we liked the first episode. That's what's crazy. I remember when we talked about the first one, we liked it.
I did not like the first episode.
I thought it was okay.
I fell asleep. It took me multiple. As long as it took Otis to
It was
watch.
the second episode that I enjoyed. The first episode was like, why the? It feels like a drama club show. Like it feels like these are just a bunch of theater nerds that have that weren't talented enough to get into the big movies, and they just came and did this. That's what watching that show feels like to me.
Damn.
Yes, but the thing, you're 100% right. So much. I love how much time we're spending bashing this. But the thing about it is that it's not like them. Yeah, that's what it is. Steve's eyes are right. The problem is people. It's fan fiction. Obviously, this is not. Tolkien did not write this. I know he wrote the similarity and all that kind of stuff, but he did not write this story. So this is all fan fiction, and it's people that are trying to sound like Tolkien, making a series or writing a story, but they aren't Tolkien. And they're people they're trying to portray characters in Tolkien's world that aren't actually really there. So it's just all comes across hollow. That's the problem. It's all hollow.
All right. Well, to talking about things that are hollow and a little creepy, we're gonna move on to segueing into. I guess we'll make it a segment now because I was kind of fighting making it a segment, but Ethan was very adamant on getting an intro for it and making it a segment. So I'm bringing to the Then and Now channel my own segment now, and we will start that now. So,
conspiracies. How deep you going with these conspiracies? It's all day. What are we doing?
This is concerned.
More of kind of a scary story, I guess, than a tale. I went down deep and dug and looked for a good couple of things I thought would be interesting, and this one stood out to me in particular. The story of the man from Torrid. Are you guys familiar with the story?
Nope.
I'm sorry. What did you say it was? The man story of which? Your audio cut out a little bit there, Dev. What did you say?
The man from Torrid.
Oh, no.
From Torrid. Nope, never heard of it.
So essentially, this goes back to 1954, and during this tale, they're in the Hanada Japanese airport. There's a man dressed really well in a full suit, really well groomed. He flew into this airport, and when he was getting his card stamped, they noticed that his passport was kind of off in a sense. If you look here, his passport says that he's from the United Kingdom of Torrid. For people that do not know, this is not an actual place that exists in the world at all. More interesting further is that this man also was speaking multiple languages. French, his main language is French. He also spoke Japanese and Spanish. And when they showed him a map, because he was very perplexed in the fact that they did not know where his home country was. So they brought up a map and they said, point to where your country is. Right. And he pointed to a country that was, I think it was Anada or Andromeda or Girona. I can't pronounce it quite well, but it's a territory that's between Spain and France. Torrid did not exist on this map. So in order to, even stranger, when they looked at his passport, they saw that his passport had been stamped at multiple countries throughout the world. So he successfully traveled throughout the world and has had no issues prior to this. He'd even been to that same Tokyo airport multiple times. So in an effort to kind of control the situation and maybe not make it a domestic terrorism or anything of that nature, the Japanese authorities took it upon themselves to take this man and place him in the 7th story of a hotel building and keep him surrounded by guards until they figured out what was going on with that.
That is wild.
The crazy thing is, I think a couple hours go by, and when detectives come to find this man and interrogate this man further, he had vanished.
No!
So people tried to figure out where he went, because again, he's on the 7th story of a building, so he couldn't have gone out the window. People would have seen him, but he's surrounded by guards. So he just vanished from the room, and nobody knew where he came from. This has been a thing that since, again, 1954, people have been trying to figure out where Tord is or why this man thought it was Tord. The theories are that we live in, again, the parallel dimension type deal where Tord is a country in a parallel dimension where I guess somehow he went through a wormhole possibly and ended up in our dimension, and maybe he went back to his dimension. We don't know. But that is the theory that we have for the show today. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
I mean, I believe in parallel dimensions. I mean, I believe in alternate realities. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't put it past it. I don't know how he got here in the first place if he was from somewhere else, but I mean, stranger things have happened.
I love it. I love it. This is fantastic. I had never heard of this. I agree with I do believe in parallel dimensions and things that are just beyond our understanding in every capacity. I don't. Most artists and storytellers do. So this is amazing. I don't have any kind of real theory about what could possibly what he is or what happened to him, anything like that. But I love the idea that he wasn't trying to be sneaky or clandestine when he went to the airport. He was like, here it is. Like, so to him, it's like whatever this being was, this was just another day for him. And like you said, he had done it several times before. So for whatever reason, he may have slipped into our dimension and we caught him briefly and then he slipped back. That is fascinating.
It's interesting. The interesting part is, again, like he was not, again, like you said, he wasn't sneaky. He was just genuinely surprised. Like, and the country to him, to like in his words, Tord had been a country and been around for over 1,000 years.
Sure.
So he's like, it's essentially like if Otis was to fly from Buffalo to Chicago, or no, better example, it's like him flying from Chicago to like Florida and them saying Chicago doesn't exist and it's never existed. And he's like, well, I grew up there. I've been there my entire life. Yeah. They're like, no, sir, Chicago's not a place. And like, and it's weird. So it's interesting.
That's the real story. Well, that's one of the stories. What would you do if you were him? If you're like, if the authorities stop you, like your home that you're trying to tell us about doesn't exist. Like, talking about, I've been there. I have evidence on my passport. Show me a map. I can tell you where it's supposed to be. It's like, I don't understand. What would that happen to you? You'd be like, my world is a Mandela effect. I don't know what's going on here, people. What would y'all do in that scenario if you were him?
Exactly what he did. Vamoose.
yeah. pull up Batman. Yeah.
Nightcrawler, just I'm out. I'll see y'all later.
That is, I lose my mind because the thing is just being hit with the realization that in a way everything you believe to be real in some capacity might not exist. It's like, what?
Even scarier because it's casual. Like there's no explosion. He didn't see any like wormhole. He just like got off the plane and just where he's from never existed.
Right. There was that show. Do y'all remember that NBC show? Or NBC, ABC, Otis. The flight. I think the show's named like at the flight number.
Yeah, flight disappeared or whatever else for like a bunch of years. Yeah,
like 5 years or something like that, and then just lands. And the people got off the plane like completely unaffected. They haven't aged for like 5 years, and like, what are you talking about? What's going on here? And it's kind of like it's like on your end for a massive mystery to have happened to unfolded, and there's no possible signs of an answer, and you're just like, I don't understand. Why is my life? I mean, like what would you do if you woke up tomorrow, Charlie or Otis, in Japan, and they're like, what are you talking about? There's no America. You're like, what? It's just that idea of just being.
Damn, bro.
that went darker than I thought it wasn't even darker.
Right.
Yeah, I lose my mind. I don't know. Yeah.
It's weird, man. Awesome. But that is the conspiracy for today. We'll probably bring this segment back at some point. But
please bring it back. Yeah, please
we'll bring it back. I got to do some more research and find some more stories. Again, you guys know I love horror. I'm a horror fan. So anything that's creepy, scary, I try to influence that and bring it into the show in spurts throughout it. But that's all I have for you guys today.
And also,
in regards to
that. And also Halloween's coming up. Halloween is a holiday that all three of us enjoy very much for different reasons. So we have some stuff coming down the pipe because of that, in honor of that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Moving on to I guess we can call it the last topic today that I have for you guys, since we didn't have a lot. It's something interesting, and we kind of have these conversations on a daily basis, but I thought directing that towards a particular thing would be nice. So obviously, we know that Superman stories, for me personally, I can't speak for the other two, are usually relatively uninteresting and kind of boring to me. Again, the more interesting story that he has within his comic runs are either when he's evil, like the Red Sun, or when he's getting murdered, like in Doomsday. The question I pose to you guys, probably we'll go to Ethan first, since you are the expertise when it comes to writing. What do you think are the difficulties when it comes to writing a Superman tale in general? And what do you think would be the best Superman tale to write? Like, what kind of arc would you take him on?
So I think both of y'all are storytellers in different veins, though, and you're also very observant about storytelling. Get that out the way first. But to address your first question, Dev, the hardest thing to write is a character, is a compelling or believable flawed character. When I say flawed, I don't mean like or a character that has a flaw. And I don't mean like for Superman, people think, oh, his flaw is kryptonite. No, his flaw isn't kryptonite. His flaw is that he wants to be human, that he yearns to be something he cannot be. And it bothers him all the time, basically. He's a giant man trying to fit in a Clark Kent suit, and it's not going to happen. So any story that actually deals with his actual internal struggle that he wants to be something he can't be is inherently relatable. But the problem is most writers don't want to do that, and most audiences don't understand that that's what makes him more interesting. So you have a lot of stories that feature him being more bombastic or more trying to face bigger, stronger bad guys in a fist fight, which may look pretty, I guess, on a page or a movie screen, but isn't nearly as immersive or engaging ultimately. So that's the kind of the double-edged sword dealing with a character like an OP character like Superman. Someone like Saitama or One Punch Man works because he's aware of his flaw and he sees it all the time. There's episodes that deal with him like showing him in a paradise where he's dreaming about fighting people that he can actually fight for a while. He can't beat them. And he wakes up and he's like, fuck, I'm still OP as hell. So there are ways to deal with quote unquote Ubermensches or Superman characters where they are still dealing with their flaw or have a flaw. The funny thing about that too is you can argue that Batman is an Ubermensch of sorts. He's way too smart. He's way too capable to be existing. He's not realistic, really. The idea is the cheat code we use is so he can, if he gets shot or something like that, or he bleeds, or he can't fly, he has to use gadgets for it. But there are so many parallels between the two characters. It's like, well, you're using the same cheat codes. You're just slightly altering a few things, a few details. As far as your second question, Dev, I know I'm rambling. I apologize for that.
No, that's the point of it, right, man?
But the best kinds of stories, I think that, as I mentioned before, the best kinds of stories for Superman characters are the ones where we see him actually dealing with his struggle. I know Man of Steel got a lot of grief, but I think it's undeniable that the beginning part of that movie where it shows him like, well, how would you feel if you felt like you were just alone in the world and didn't know what to do? All of us, blurs, white folks, gorgeous women at one time in our lives felt like we were alone and didn't know what to do with our lives. And that's very relatable. So making an Ubermensch feel relatable in some capacity is the golden rule. If you can do that with any character across the board, your story should have it, period. And I think that's a problem that some stories just don't do. I think that's the fastest way to lose your audience is to make the character feel unrealistic. Rings of power, cough, cough. So that's the thing. If you can make Superman show him struggling in a way that is relatable, you will get the audience 10 times out of 10. But most writers, and I'm not trying to bash DC writers, but I'm just saying that it may be that from the higher ups are saying we don't want that. We want the bombastic stuff, and they deal with that instead.
All right, Otis.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll take it from a little bit of a different direction than what he said. Give him villains that actually make him question his own righteousness. For one, don't just put the wrong person out there. Like maybe you put a person that he is. Give him okay, like the best scenario I've ever seen Superman put in where he was really psychologically hit, at least in my opinion, was an Injustice when the Joker hit him with the souped up fear gas and made him that Lois was doomed. Find ways to really put him through some trauma psychologically. He's not a human, but he's still a person that has emotions and feelings, has what he cares about. Put him in some real scenarios where, as strong as he is, he can't things to fix the situation. Put him in some real things instead of just Oh, another really, really, really strong guy. Now you got to go plus ultra again, Superman. Yay!
Right.
For me, I guess I'm gonna be in a similar vein of my two acquaintances here. I think the problem with him is the same kind of problem I have with Captain America, where the writers, I guess more so because correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he was created by two Jewish men during like World War II, right? Like he was supposed to be the like leading North Star for the Jewish people. Like he's supposed to be the impenetrable shield and like the hero. And I think in him doing that, I think over time they made that character too perfect to where he just makes all the right decisions. He always has the great moral and ethical decisions. And I think he really shines in scenarios where he does not have that. With Injustice, The Red Sun, for me, one of my favorite ones being Smallville, where he's literally just a teenager and living a teenager thing. For me, the perfect story with Superman would be something similar to Smallville, but one, a little bit better written, and two, he even in Smallville, like he makes some things that teenagers would do, but he still was ethically always right and morally always right. Like there are characters that will come into the show, whether it be like the Flash or other people like that, and they'll have their either revenge story or their selfish thing that they want to do, and he's always just the one like, no, you can't do that. It's not right. You have to do the right thing. I'd like to see Superman, I guess, be a Martha and I can't remember his dad's name.
Johnny Boy.
Yeah. Johnny Kent, yeah. Having him just do him and just be a regular, like not be to the same degree of like Injustice level where he's just evil, but just be a regular person without the super moral compass where you make the same mistakes that regular people make, but your mistakes are higher, have greater consequences because of your power and the things that you do to affect your world. Sure. That'd be me and my personal favorite Superman story. Same thing with Captain America. Again, maybe not to the same extent because he's not as strong, but again, just don't always make the right ethical choices and the right moral choices because it makes you seem. For me, it comes across very unrelatable,
right?
Because no human being is always even the best person is going to make ethical and moral mistakes that they normally wouldn't see as the best thing to do. Just because you're a human being, you make those mistakes.
I completely agree. I agree with both of y'all, actually. Mm-hmm. But I think it would be fun, as Otis said, to see him go up against characters. Because that's something that they do in Batman a lot, is they have the characters do challenge him in different ways, as far as like psychologically or mentally, physically. They put him through the ringer in things that he thinks he's good at, and he gets tested in those areas. And I guess Dev said, or Charlie said, kind of in a way show the journey that Superman goes on to this. For all of us, we had to learn the difference between right and wrong. We weren't born with an all-powerful compass that told us what was absolute. We had to learn those things. We had to make mistakes. And Smallville does touch on those. It actually does show Clark making mistakes from time to time. But yeah, like you said, it maybe there's more nuanced writing. But it would be one of the things I like about anime is that it does show characters, even the best of characters, making mistakes. I mean, Goku is praised kind of like being the parallel to Superman. That dude is borderline the villain of that series. We all know that. The fans know that. But also, I'm a big fan of My Hero Academia, and that it kind of shows the Superman figure in his final days. Spoiler alert! And it shows the newer character, his heir, having to deal with things. It shows him having to grow up. Like, it shows his learning curve, essentially. If they had shown Superman having to deal with a learning curve properly, that could have been really interesting. Or Captain America too. So I agree with what you're saying.
All right. I think that plays into like why Batman's probably, I mean, maybe you can make the argument, but I think he's like the most popular DC character. And that's more so because he's a human being, and he has infinite amounts of stories where he's either an asshole, he's over controlling, he's narcissistic, has a borderline mental health issue where he's just determined to save lives, even at the cost of other lives. And him showing he has all these flaws and mistakes as a person, and all these different stories kind of take one of those flaws and put them into the forefront. And I think that's why Batman's so popular, because he's so much more relatable to people. He has these problems.
That is Rose Gallery.
Well, that in Rose Gallery as well.
Because the Rose Gallery, but they do what you said, Otis. They challenge him in those ways.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this real quick, though, Dev and Otis. Do you see Batman as moral or amoral?
Amoral.
I'd say the same.
That's what I say too. He's more or less like it's objective based. It's not. It's the end justifies the means, which he will do things that are you definitely shouldn't do. He has no problem breaking the
He's
law.
done several illegal things.
Yeah, that's
Right.
his MO is breaking the law over and over and over again. But it's ultimately to get the greatest good. But he will damn sure he has no qualms about literally shattering a guy's body, putting them into triage. They'll survive, but they'll be so fucked up. What's the point?
Live their rest of life in their body count all their food.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
I think it's part of like looking into like the dichotomy between him and Superman too. When it comes to their moral compasses, they both lead to them kind of having at least wanting the same result. But with Superman having the moral compass of his parents teaching him right from wrong, Batman has that trauma of like murder in his mind 24/7, which I guess you see it a lot in like the more recent Harley Quinn episode where he's just reliving it over and over again, or he's kind of doing things out of his like triggering of his PTSD versus it being the right thing to do a lot of the times. And funny enough, he is a mirror to his rogues gallery as well. Like with Superman's rogues gallery, they're all just like conquerors and all they're Hitlers, they're conquerors, they're Nazis and things of that nature. They're like you have the all good, like the all powerful good guy and the all powerful evil guys. But Batman's rogues galleries, they're usually somewhere in between. Sometimes they'll like be a little more evil and depending on the story, but majority of the time in between, they're people that have gone through some kind of traumatic experience and sometimes react to how most people would. It's, oh, well, I got this power where I'm a clay monster. I'm going to be selfish and do something to make me feel better. Or I am a woman that controls people's minds. So I'm going to have my own agenda. I'm going to use these powers to achieve my agenda, no matter what that is.
Right.
Most people, they get power that they're going to use them selfishly. And then you just have Batman with the selfish motivations of his trauma there to counteract that.
Right. I mean, that old Arabic saying that absolute power corrupts absolutely. But what you said, the easiest way to break it down is that essentially all of Batman's rogues have some kind of a mental struggle, whether it be an illness or just a phobia or condition or whatever it is. And Batman is a person who can relate to all of them because he has several mental issues and conditions, and he's aware of it too. So oftentimes you will see Batman one or two steps ahead of the people he's fighting because he knows what they're dealing with because he himself can relate to it or understands it. Sometimes he actually will. One of the episodes we talked about before, one of our favorite episodes from Just Like Unlimited, epilogue, he sits down. It shows him sitting down with, was it Ace? No, it wasn't Ace.
It was Ace.
The girls. It was Ace.
She's one of the Aces, yeah.
One of the Aces. And they changed the roster. But he sits down with her and talks to her in a way that no one else could do. And even Waller calls him out like, yeah, he's able to do that because he's able to sympathize and empathize in a way that other people can't because he has so many conditions to deal with. And you mentioned Superman is basically, because he is an Ubermensch, the world he has to deal with is other dictators, other powerful, power-hungry beasts, because that's what he is, essentially himself. However, he's at the opposite end of that spectrum. He believes power should be used to help those that are lesser than as opposed to oppress them. So both of them are they're both having to deal with the opposite side of the coin from themselves in some capacity. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
right.
It's okay to mix up coins. I mean, you can do other things. It doesn't always have to be the grandiose world conqueror coming to take over the planet again for you to save him again.
I agree. One of my favorite. Do y'all remember the introductory episode in the Superman show, the Bruce Timm show, introduced the character Livewire?
Yes.
There's a part where she's like essentially on the radio talking to Lois Lane about how Superman is like the worst. And she's talking about how he's never there. He never does the job, never helps anybody out. And it shows Superman trying to hold up a crane that breaks, and the crane is going to drop down and kill like a baby a baby and a woman down below. The struggle is actually not whether or not Superman will survive, is whether or not he can get the job done without having him get killed. So sometimes it's fun to watch him essentially as a street level hero, figuring out how can I help the most people in the least amount of time with the least amount of casualties in a way that only Superman can. Seeing them struggle with that, even in that weird ass, badass movie, Superman Returns. I'm sorry for bringing it up, but there's one really cool scene where that plane it's like the plane / rocket shuttle is going off, and you see Superman trying to figure out how to keep that plane from crashing and everyone dying. The struggle isn't, you never worry about him being in danger, but you do worry about everyone else around him that he's trying to save. Can he save them, essentially? So
it's just like that scene, just more scenes like how they did in Spider-Man 2, where Spider-Man had to save the train of people. I mean, I guess in that scene you were also worried about his safety too, because I mean, he passed out from it. But yeah, just like
not as much.
creating that sense of, oh, these people might not survive. Like, I mean, giving some gravity to the situation instead of just another fight.
Stakes,
Right.
yeah, actual stakes. Because Superman's not the same as One Punch Man. One Punch Man is never really in danger, but the people around him are. The episode of One Punch Man with the that's giant sea creature essentially. We're never worried about Saitama. It's probably it's everyone's favorite episode basically. But the idea is that like the danger is still there for everyone around, and those are the stakes. So having more of that be palpable and real, you know.
I think even going back to the Bruce Timm verse, my favorite version of Batman isn't even in that like decade or that time period. If you go and watch Batman Beyond, there is an episode in which they're trying to bring Batman into the Justice League, and you get to meet Superman at that point. And Terry McGinnis is for his mind, he knows Superman is all power, like what he has been for majority of that universe's run, the all powerful, all strong moral compass. But you get to a point to where you see Superman starting to act out of character a little bit, where he's being a little more jaded and a little bit like, and they get into that shot. I can't remember if he was mind controlled or not, or if that was just him naturally over time. Yeah. Like he, at least before you find out he was being mind controlled, they pretty much made it seem as though he had become jaded after years and years of being the all-powerful moral compass. He's like, I've had enough of that. I want to do things for myself. I want to be selfish for once. I've earned that. I deserve that. And you start to see just, again, what it seems like will be I'm kind of mad that StarWars was the one behind that, but it felt like a natural progression for somebody that lived that long with that amount of power and restricted. It's like if I were to have this cheesecake in front of me, like a pumpkin cheesecake or something, and for 30 years, I know that this cheesecake would taste, it's like the best thing I will ever eat in my life. But for other people to get their own cheesecake for 30 years, I had to ignore this cheesecake and never touch this thing. By the time I'm like 60 and I'm becoming jaded and I've been around for so long, at some point I want to be selfish and I want to have my own piece of that cheesecake. Everybody else has had theirs. I want my own piece of this cheesecake. Right. And in that, at least for that episode, I thought that was like the best that character had been written in that verse up until that point. Granted, I was kind of sad finding out it was mind control, which usually is with him, is somebody acting out of character, which is probably why I liked Invincible so much, because when they saw Omni-Man acting out of character, I was like, oh, you got to be mind controlled or something. He's like, no, this is just me.
I've been acting out of character all yet you have known me.
Right.
Yeah, no, I feel you. That's a good reference. I know we've been talking forever, but this is a good conversation. I don't care.
I was going to say that. Like, I mean, the best portrayals of Superman are actually not Superman. They're Homelander and Omni-Man. We know this.
Oof, Homelander. You brought up Homelander. Or even Saitama. I feel like Saitama is a good example too of them. Or even Captain America, more so in the films, in the MCU, as far as someone that's trying to be righteous in a world that's not righteous. Keep in mind, Captain America does abandon the shield. He literally drops his shield and says, fuck y'all, grows in a beard and walks away. Because he's like, I'm trying to be a righteous. Fair.
Beard game.
That beard game was crisp. But the thing is, like, I'm trying to be a righteous person in a world that doesn't want that. What am I supposed to do? I'm walking away. I feel like you're saying, Dev, sometimes it does seem unrealistic for it to be there to be that much of a pinnacle of a person like Superman to exist. But the idea with Superman is that he's meant to be. He's always what the Siegel and Schuster, the guys who created Superman, wanted him to be, was a beacon of hope. That last vestige, as far as like when you think you can't do something, he can, almost like a Christ symbol, even though they're Jewish. I think the only way that you can get away with doing something like that is for Superman to actually have breaking points and have low days. But you see that he does have a family. He's a support network. When he gets down, when he gets low on himself, whatnot, he's not by himself. He has Lois, or he has his son now. He has his parents. So those things do happen, and he's able to come back. Batman, in a way, traditionally before, tried to isolate himself so he wouldn't. When he pretty much stayed in the low, stayed in the darkness. So he was able. That's how he worked. If anything made him happy or light, it would kind of conflict with that. That's the whole point of that movie, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm. He's like, I can't do my job if I have happiness there too. So it's different bases and different styles for characters.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, you have any other remarks or thoughts on this discussion before we close out?
Good talk. Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, hey, that's the goal, man. I know we didn't have a lot of topics picked out, but again, I wanted to have great conversation. We have these conversations in general all the time, so I thought, why not bring this into the show? It was great. I had fun. I had a blast.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Again, church announcements. Everybody gather around. Children, grandmas, aunties, deacons, deaconesses. We have upcoming projects coming up. Again, we've talked about it a lot up until this point, but if you are a fan of books and you want to support us, we have Echelon G Novels here, the creator and the owner, one of the co-owners. He has been gracious enough to help me and Otis have part of our dreams come true and part of our friends' dreams come true in producing our own very comics. Otis here has a comic called Briarlands that is currently out with Echelon G Novels. We are working to get that onto the Echelon website and get that sold very soon, along with my myself and my friend's comic, Son of Shaitan, which is also on the way and being finished and being worked on. So if you guys like comics and you like supporting independent Black creators that do dope shit, go and check it out. Echelon G Novels. I'll probably put it in the link below this video. Also, oh yeah, I forgot to put the link to the Q&A in here. We have about 10 minutes left. So again, if you would like to come up to the show and have any questions or want to give your own thoughts or answers on anything we've talked about up until this point, I'm going to be putting the link to the room we're in now into the comments of the YouTube channel. So if you'd like to come up, just hop on over, go into the comments, click on it, and we'll bring you up.
Word.
All right, question, fellas. Are y'all caught up on House of the Dragon?
I'm like an episode or two behind.
Oh, I'm very caught up. I am super caught up. Are we? Can we? So we can tease spoilers, right?
I mean, the knight is the op now, like for sure. Like Sir Krant, whatever the hell his name is. That's for sure the op.
A Christian, right?
Yeah, that one. Mm-hmm. I don't even want to remember his name anymore. I know Tink is still a fan of him, I guess, because he's attractive, but like, like, what? That's for sure the op. Like, how could you snitch like that?
The thing is, y'all are better at both. Y'all actually are better at predicting shows and stuff. Like Otis is like too good at it. Shows and movies than I am. I like not knowing things how they're coming along or whatnot. Let me ask you this real quick, and I won't get into spoilers, Deb. You're good. Mm-hmm. Did you see what there's a scene in like a wedding or whatnot? Mm-hmm. Did you see that unfolding? That unfolding in that event?
That at the wedding? No.
Okay.
I did not see that coming.
Okay.
But I mean, it's in typical Game of Thrones fashions. Weddings don't go the way they're supposed to.
Bro, I swear to God.
They're worse than black weddings when we get wow.
I'm about to be strapped at my wedding. I dare somebody to stand up. When they say, do you have anyone that objects? I dare you to stand up. I dare you to stand up. Please.
If we're talking about Game of Thrones, right? And the strap won't even keep you safe. You can't even
everyone's be strapped.
I'm pulling up in an Iron Man.
Don't be strapped. Be suited up. Yeah, be suited up. Yeah. I the thing is, I know, Dev, you already know this. How they're doing it. They're doing a time jump tonight's episode. Mm-hmm. So we won't go into any details about what happens before, but I am so eager to. I know you don't like time jumps, Otis. But I feel like this time jump may work bizarrely well because it's like it's so much has happened. So much had to have happened. It's so much led up. It's like I'm chopping at the bit to to see it.
I mean, just to see the transition because I mean they've shown some trailers of it, so this isn't spoilers. But like Rhaenyra and her once friend now being antagonistic towards each other. I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how we got to that point. I mean.
And we know some reasons.
Right. I mean, yeah, we know a few, but I mean, to get to that level, like the heat that they showed in those trailers, I was like, okay.
Heat.
Hey, man. It was crazy.
Yeah, I even know married to his cousin. That's a little weird, but I mean,
right? Yeah, there's so much. There's so much. I love it, man. It's a.
Is she
I'm
black?
so glad y'all made me watch the show. Huh?
So at least she's black. Yeah.
Right.
I
have friends that like. I was like, hey, bro, I should watch this. It's pretty good. I don't know. I didn't really like Game of Thrones. I couldn't really get into it. I'm like, bro, I'm telling you, this show is heat. It's the best things of Game of Thrones. And at least up until this point, they haven't fucked up yet. I'm like, y'all to watch this shit. But no, My homegirl, I think like we went to Sam's Club like a day or two ago. She's like,
Sam's
we're watching House of the Dragon. It's really good. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. It's like somebody told you to watch that shit, right? It's like, shut up. I'm like,
you pull out tape recorder if you say that to them as actual evidence from like 4 days ago. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I keep my accounts. If I tell you to watch something and you say you don't like this shit, and I find out you watch it later on and you loved it, I make that mental note. I make that mental note.
You've sent in the chat several times. You quoted me saying something that was like from 2 weeks ago. I was like, I said that. I'm old.
It's one thing if you watch it and don't like it, but if you say I'm not going to like it and then you end up liking it, nigga, please.
I told you so. I told you so.
Charlie has not caught me in that yet. There has not been a thing where I said that it was going to be bad and it wasn't actually bad yet. At least not to my knowledge. Not on the record of this show. I've been right almost every time.
So I guess the thing is, you can't. It's not fair to prejudge something and say, but looking at it and say that's gonna be terrible, that's gonna be bad. We shouldn't do that. That's fair. We should get caught out for that kind of shit. However, if you're like, I don't know about that doesn't look like it's my cup of tea. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, that's fair game. Like if you're unsure, but if you say like, I mean, I know me, I'll be spicy and say like, oh yeah, that's gonna be bad. Like that's for sure gonna be bad. So if it ends up being good, I'll eat that. But
yeah, you usually say that looks bad. You will say that looks. You won't just outright say that.
Yeah,
that's gonna.
We've had that scenario where like we watched a trailer and like he said, I don't think I'm gonna like it. Then he ends up like at least thinking it's okay. But we haven't caught him anything like that yet. No. He'll slip up at some point. Unfortunately,
too, usually when Otis says that he's right. Like if he says I don't think I'm like that, he's usually right. I've been wrong numerous times. Obviously, it's been documented. That's
gonna be the weird shit. I've watched videos back, like our older stuff. I'm like, damn, I said that. I thought that. That's crazy.
Yeah, it happened. And all this stuff for Otis do that. We all look at something. And part of it too is we want something to be good. We look at something and say, "Yo, I want that to be good. I'm excited about that. Let's go. Let's dance." Like I was for House of Dragons. I'm even sure I watched the trailer because I was so upset after the way the Game of Thrones did. I was like, I don't know if I need any more of this stuff. But they went so far removed. It's very much more of an insular story. It's a very different kind of thing. It has two different showrunners. It's definitely in the world of Game of Thrones, but it's very much a different cup of tea. It's similar to Andor and Star Wars, or Andor and like I don't know, Boba Fett or whatever. It's like, yeah, these are technically the same world, but they're so different that it's not the same thing, really.
I think that's the main thing with you, particularly. Like we'll be like you won't like this shit. The main factor, I'll be like, look, me and Otis like this shit. We know you gonna like this. If me and him agree on some shit being good, we know you gonna like this shit. I think House of Dragon was the most recent one.
It's definitely the most recent. I will almost always at least try something. I will almost at least try something. I can get snobby about like writing and those kind of things. I know I can, but I will always at least try something. One thing we do have to factor in before you get ready to go here is there's always a sense of like we have to accept the nostalgia haze or certain things like, or biases. There are shows we've all talked about like either Bleach or whatever, different types of animes that I know you guys like, that you've seen obviously when you're younger, you respect, and the veneer of those may be more charming than the actual show. So for a newcomer coming into it, it's like it doesn't quite catch them as much. Like so Bleach, it just didn't hit me, but I understand why it hit y'all. However, something like Yu Yu Hakusho, which I was very late, very, very late to, once I sat down and watched, I was like, yeah, this actually is good. It's not just the nostalgia. So sometimes it can be that you never know how good, no matter how good a show may be to you, it still may not hit with somebody else because of A, B, or C.
Yeah. And something that you might think is complete trash, like Thor 4, might be seeing good to like other people for some reason.
Have y'all seen all the like crazy amount of controversy and stuff over Thor 4 now? It's
like really some bad people are saying like it's really good still. Some people are saying it's the worst thing ever. It's
somewhere in between. It's not, to me at least, it's somewhere in between. Motherfucker said Morbius is better than this. I'm like, stop it. Stop it. No, it's not. Let's not. Villain alone. Bale, as little as we saw him,
Bale was in a completely different movie than the rest of the movie.
He's in the movie still. He still counts. He's in the movie.
He's still his performance.
Is he?
having a villain that's like that'd be the essentially having like evil Thor is what Morbius was. We don't have an evil version. It went back to like 2002 where we don't have an evil version of the character with the same.
I'm not
power.
saying that he was like Vampire Damon is not a good character. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that like at least it's like. I guess it's maybe just my own bias against Thor 4. I don't know, but at least I could think I would rewatch Morbius at some point to laugh at it. I can't even laugh at Thor 4. It's just like, stop existing, please. I'm begging.
It's fair enough, man. I'm close, obviously, with Dev, where I think it's somewhere in between. I think it's bizarre how much, even with Morbius, it's Morbin time. There's certain movies or certain things that get so much hate, like The Woman King, which I think, did you see that one yet, Dev? The Woman
Not
King?
yet.
That movie, which Otis and I did enjoy a lot, that movie's getting a weird controversy because they're saying, "Oh, this isn't historically accurate." It's like, do you know how many things? Nothing on film is historically accurate. Nothing. All the people that were praising 300 is the most fictional version of the version invasion. It's like, so what's going on here? Braveheart. You realize that in Braveheart, there's virtually even his name, William Wallace, was in Braveheart. That was Bruce, the other guy. I think his last name. That was actually the Lionheart, the Braveheart guy. William Wallace wasn't Braveheart at all. So it's like you guys are praising things, award-winning films for being so cool and fun. They were historically wildly inaccurate, and then Woman King comes out and you're just destroying it.
The thing that annoys me about the Woman King and the 300 thing in particular is like they're like, oh, they were that African or the Native Africans took other Africans and sold them into slavery. Like, yeah, we know that. We didn't have to show that. With 300, you're praising that shit. If they were 100% historically accurate, a lot of those soldiers, majority of them would be gay. Like a lot of the Spartans were gay because they made them to do so they would like protect each other a lot more harshly. But niggas would have a whole flip if they watched this machismo ass movie and all these men were gay and they were fighting and shit. They could not handle that shit.
And also they had slaves. They had full of slaves. The reason Sparta fell is because they lost their slaves and they couldn't sustain their economy. So there's so many things. Again, if we're really gonna do this, let's do it openly. Let's do it fairly. Let's go ahead and get at it. So that's all I'm saying. That's all the beef I have. So yeah. Oh, that's my rant over.
Yeah. Well, that's everything, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for your support. We hope for your continued support. If you guys are watching us on any of the platforms, we would appreciate if you go over to our YouTube channel at the Then and Now podcast and give us a sub over there. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so we'd appreciate the help. And again, if you guys like dope shit, check us out.
One last question before we go to tease two things. So next week's show, we already know we're talking about. Something to think about is, what is real evil? What does it really look like? and two, speaking of Batman, we talk about Batman a lot. What do you guys think? Is Bloodborne maybe the best Batman game actually ever made? But we'll get into that later. We'll get into that later. But all right. Things to think about.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.
How do you feel, Amazon, knowing that you spend more money than House of the Dragon, but still that is good?